Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about my life struggle with weight loss. Kind of just like the seasons of life I went through leading up to carnivore and what I tried and what didn't work and some of the contributing factors to my weight gain. And then kind of landing the plane on why carnivore has been the answer and why all these other reasons I kind of like was failed from the beginning because of some things I was keeping in my diet. And so we're going to go through a little Allie's past history of weight loss and weight gain and just yo-yo dieting, and I'm gonna pull some pictures from the vault and we're gonna look and see just kind of what happens, I guess, over the course of a life whenever you struggle with weight your whole life and body image and all that kind of fun stuff. So let's just get right into it. If you're new here, my name is Allie, and in 2024 I lost 75 pounds with the carnivore diet before falling off and gaining half of it back whenever I broke carnivore for 6 months. And in February of this year I decided to give it another try and have been carnivore ever since, and I'm feeling great. Since the beginning of the year I have lost about 24 pounds and I am slowly working my way back on track. So thank you for being here, and if you are not carnivore and are just perusing the content to see what it's like, let me testify and tell you that it has been different for my body and my health than anything I've ever tried. And I have a pretty long rap sheet of what I've tried, which we will get into today. So thanks for watching and I hope you enjoy the video. So part of my issues I would like to blame on genetics, but that's probably not accurate because both of my sisters have extremely fast metabolisms. My parents were both like sticks whenever they were kids, and I never went through the stick phase of life. That skipped over me. From a young age, I definitely started holding on to weight at a different pace than my peers. I was really active as a kid. I was involved in a ton of sports. I played basketball. I was on the swim team. If there's like a sport in this world, I tried it, and I wasn't like good at all of them, but I sure did have the attitude for it. Like, I was just made to be a sports girl. The skill doesn't match most of the sports I played, but I was really active whenever I was young. And I remember realizing my size. Like, I was just very aware of my size. I was taller for my age, and I was just bigger than the other kids, and I've been the same height since I was in the 5th grade. So I'm only 5'7" or 5'8", but like when you're 9, 10, 11, that's a giant. And so I just was always super aware of like the space I was taking up. But my parents kept me active. We had a really active lifestyle. I played upward basketball, which is like a Christian basketball league for kids, and I would never get the Christ-like star. They'd give you like an award after every game, and I never got the Christ-like one. But I would always be told, like, you're really aggressively offense. Like, your offense is aggressive, your defense is really aggressive. And I was like, thanks. Like, I didn't want the Christ-like star. Like, I wanted like the star for making the most shots. But anyway, all that to say, by no means was I sedentary as a kid. And I remember getting tested for diabetes and drinking like some disgusting orange drink. They had to test my blood sugar levels, and those came back negative, but I just really held on to weight. I had no interest in any sort of healthy food. I was a very picky eater, and so it's kind of like the deck was stacked against me from the get-go. But I remember being taken to the doctor whenever I was young. I don't remember what age I was, but it was before I got my cycle, because my doctor wanted to talk to my parents about, I was just kind of predisposed to having the right mixture of everything going on that would keep me holding on to weight later in life. And that was definitely true. Like, as I aged into preteen age and went through puberty and stuff, I just developed quickly, and I just kind of stayed this size. Like, I trekked with weight gain through my whole young life. And I remember the first time that I went on a diet, I was in the 5th grade, and I don't even know that it was anything specific. It was probably calorie restriction or something like that. And I remember losing 20 pounds, which as a 5th grader, I mean, you're what, 10 or 11? That's like a pretty significant feat to do at that age. And no one else your age is really dieting. So I felt very quiet about it. And I was in gymnastics at the time. And I remember being able to lift myself up on the like uneven bars for the first time. And I was like, I am Simone Biles, like, I'm going pro after this. And really I just started noticing that, like, not only did I visually have a difference in my body from losing weight, I physically felt different. And that was kind of my first connection between realizing that health and your weight really do coincide with one another, because up until then weight was something super materialistic to me. But at that point I realized like, no, there is a positive effect on my body when I eat healthier and when I weigh less. And so this kind of just cemented an idea for me at a young age that I needed to lose weight, and I was just too heavy. Like, my life was being impaired, and potentially my opportunities, aka the Olympics, being impaired by my size. And so that was my first, I guess, interaction with diet culture, or dieting to begin with, was in the 5th grade. So starting middle school, I remember at this point I was under 200 pounds. Like, I was probably around 170 or 180, but for a middle schooler, I mean, that is just extremely unhealthy. And I was starting to kind of phase out of sports, because a lot of the sports that I participated in were for elementary students or up to 12 years old, and I went to a private school that didn't have sports. And so my activity level started to kind of decline, and this was post puberty, and I'm just starting to realize like I can't shop in the same areas as my friends, or if we are shopping, and like I had moved into the women's section and they were still in the juniors, or I just started noticing all of these differences. I remember early on in high school I went on a mission trip with my dad. We went to Costa Rica, and it was with my school. So I think this was like the summer between freshman and sophomore year. We were so active on that trip. We were doing physical labor, we were traveling a lot, walking a lot, and I get home and I'm like, surely I've lost weight. And for the first time, this scale crossed over 200 pounds, and I just like totally crumpled. I did not understand why I could not get a fix or a grasp on my weight gain, and I didn't even feel like I was doing very much to contribute to it. But this is where understanding of nutrition and calories and nutrient dense food really comes into play, because I would feel like I was starving myself when really I was eating like 2,000 calorie meals once or twice a day, but thinking I was never eating. And so we started looking into Weight Watchers, and at this point a lot of my experience with weight loss I had kind of done in this joint effort with my dad, but this was on my own, and I would go to the meetings, we would do public weigh-ins. Hello. Weight Watchers really helped me understand portion control and start to get a fix on like the nutritional value of food. But this was such like a delicate time of life. I mean, like, being a teenager is already tough on its own, but for teenagers who struggle with their weight, it's just like a whole different caliber of like social angst. Like, teenager, angsty, and overweight, and just very conscious of myself. But I would like to say here, because I think this is a huge blessing and something that like is completely from God and completely from my parents, that no matter what weight I've been at, I have never felt like it affected like my identity or self-worth. And I know that that is 100% because my parents taught me from a young age like who I was, and the value that I held as a person had nothing to do with my physical appearance. All the things to do with like who God created me to be, and just the person he made me, the purpose I had, and the confidence to live my life with. And so I know that that's not everybody's story, but no matter what size I have been really intentional to make sure that like I'm praying and renewing my mind to the idea that like that has nothing to do with like who I am as a person. And so thankfully, even during this time, even though I was kind of unaware of my health issues or just like unaware of my growing size, I still had all the confidence in the world. You can ask any of my friends from that time, did not struggle with that area at all, because I loved myself and because I could tell the direction I was heading. I really was trying everything in my power to fix these issues that became seemingly like increasingly unmanageable. So all throughout high school, I tried Weight Watchers. I did MetaFast for a while where I ate like 900 calories or something a day, and it was horrible. But once again, just starting to try and make the connection between nutrition and weight loss and it being a lifestyle. Once I got to college, I feel like this is where things really changed. They would talk about the freshman 15, and for me it was more like the freshman 35. It's just like nothing I did would keep me on a path of losing weight, and I would look at myself, you know, like months down the road and be like, oh my gosh, like I wish I was that size again. Like, it just kept getting out of control. It wasn't wasn't until I got engaged that I was like, okay, I really want to do something that is going to stick. I want to prepare for my wedding. You know, I'm going to be married and all the things that come with that. Like, I just really wanted to look at my wedding pictures and be like, I love these. And I'm so happy with how that turned out. And so we started keto, and this was the first breakthrough moment for me. Keto was the first high fat, no carb or low carb, high protein diet I had ever been on. Every other diet I had ever done, like for instance, Weight Watchers, you would have no points taken if you did fruit or veggies or anything that did have natural sugars, starches, and carbs. And so I had never actually fully eliminated carbs from my diet. And when I started keto, it like opened my eyes to basically how I had been self-sabotaging from the get-go. I had always had carbs and sugar in my diet and didn't know that because I had insulin resistance, it was kind of being counterintuitive to every attempt I was making, because as long as those things were in my diet, it was going to prevent me from progressing. And I didn't know that at the time. I didn't learn that about myself until Carnivore, but it was like the first glimpse into the way a body should be losing weight and seeing a return on my effort, because that's what would frustrate me so much. In the past, I was putting all this work in and seeing like 0 results or like really, really slow results. And okay, I don't really remember where I was. Hello?
I just have a feeling that she needs a diaper change. Like, I can feel it in my soul, and I am not doing that.
So after I got married, I had been on keto for like 3 or 4 months. I had lost a ton of weight, like very rapidly. It was the most weight I had ever lost, like up until that point. And I get married, and as with the freshman 15, whenever you're newlyweds, you're just like so in love and eating apparently all the time. I remember though watching myself gain weight. Like, I gained back everything that I had lost within about 6 to 8 months. And then I also gained more, which is where I kind of ended up like leading into Carnivore. It was so interesting because I was living with another person for the first time, and we were eating pretty much the same thing all the time. And I realized, like, I'm gaining weight so rapidly and you're not. And I didn't understand, because in my family, we all had different enough eating habits to where none of us were on the same plan ever. But with this, I was making our meals, or we were eating the same food like out, and he wasn't gaining weight and I was, and it just started to make things that kind of clear to me that there was something else going on. So I finally realized one day, I got to this point where I had seen a picture of myself, and this was at my heaviest. And I'll put that picture here. I see this picture of myself. I don't recognize myself at all. And it's crazy, like, how you're unaware sometimes because you live in your body and you are used to yourself and the space you take up and the way that you feel, that before you know it, you have like reached a weight or a health status that you did not realize you were at. And I see this picture of myself and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, who is that? Is that what I look like? I finally get back on the scale, because I had been avoiding it, of course, and I had gained so much weight since we had gotten married. We obviously have dreams of having kids, and it was like my New Year's resolution that year was to get my health under control, because I really wanted to try for kids. And it was one of those things where we had never tried before, because I was so nervous it wasn't gonna work. And then I was gonna be like confronting face to face why it wasn't working. And it was gonna be because I was unhealthy. And so I just kind of bit the bullet and ended up doing Carnivore for the first time, and felt like I finally had like a grip on this like rapid weight gain that nothing else seemed to stop. And that's why I want to share why Carnivore actually worked in the first place. When you have insulin resistance and your body is producing too much insulin, it's not breaking down the glucose or the fat, and all of that's just getting stored and stored and stored. I was not able to healthy eat my way out of insulin resistance. Like, I had to starve and choke out my insulin resistance by removing carbs and sugars. And as long as that was in my body and in my diet, my composition of what was going on with my hormones and what was going on with the resistance was gonna keep me from losing weight, no matter what effort I was making. And up until then, I had kind of like dabbled with intermittent fasting and Carnivore, both of which are supposed to help insulin resistance. and I finally saw a video on carnivore and fertility, and it's what made me decide to do it, because it's hard when you're overweight and obese and you don't know where your health issues are coming from. It's like, are they coming from the fact that I'm overweight, or are they coming from the fact that I have like a weight-induced disease or weight-induced health issue complications, and that's what's causing all of this? And so I remember looking up symptoms of PCOS or looking up symptoms of cortisol levels and all these things where it's like, I can't pinpoint where my symptoms are coming from. I just know I'm having some of them. And I saw this video on carnivore and fertility, and it shared about how you can essentially eradicate reproductive issues or cycle irregularities with carbs and sugars. And that's what sold me. I was like, I'm gonna do it. This is my breaking point. Like, I want to have kids, and for the foreseeable future, who knows how long it's going to take to lose this weight and get out of weight where it's healthy to be pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy to term, you know? And so that's what kind of like made me make this decision. I just started one day, and one of the things that my parents always say is like, you have to have a why. And for me, that why is something much bigger than physical appearance. And if that's your only reason, go you. Like, that's enough, okay? You're worth it. Like, if you are the only reason you're doing this for you, it's worth it. You 1,000,000% deserve to have a healthy, long life. And so if that's why you're doing this, that's enough of a reason. But for me, I've always needed a little bit more depth to suffering, like just, you know, putting myself through this. And it gets easier with time, but like both times I have started carnivore, it's also taken some mental fortitude on the front end to decide to do it. That's one of the things that I think was so eye-opening, and it made everything else in my past click. Why nothing else had been working was because of that insulin resistance in my body just holding on to any ounce of sugar that I was giving it. It was gonna always counteract all this effort I was making. So if you recognize yourself in any of my story, I really encourage you to try carnivore for 30 days. And if you can make it through the 30 days, you will find you can do it much longer than that. And I really encourage you to do it for like 60 plus days. There are lots of benefits you might see on the other side of it. I'm a couple days away from my 60 days, and I don't even think about it anymore, y'all. Like, it's not even something on my mind. And what was hard about past diets is because I was always having sugar in my diet, my body was always hungry. It was always craving a satisfaction that only like certain types of food could bring. That's why I was failing from the start. I was doomed to fail because I was feeding those addictions enough. And so when you are on carnivore, you are really doing like a full factory reset on yourself, and you can see what you're made of. Like, you will really be able to see what your body is capable of. The goals that you have for yourself, you can meet them when you're giving yourself a level playing field. When you're keeping sugar and carbs in your diet, it's not a level playing field, okay? You are doomed to fail if you have insulin resistance and sugar addiction. I'm not talking about people who can eat with balance, okay? I'm talking about people who have tried everything, it doesn't work, the scale keeps going up, and you don't know what else to do. I really encourage you to try carnivore for 30 days. And if you decide to do that, please let me know. There have been so many people who have messaged me and they're like, I started today, or I started last week, I'm doing the 30-day challenge and I feel great. And I'm just so happy for them because I know that their results and their success are on the other side of that decision. So I hope that if anything that you take away from this video, there is an answer to why things aren't working, and it might be this. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, I'm a first grade teacher. I say that frequently. Do not come to me for medical advice or anything. I'm just sharing what has happened to me and what was affecting me before I made this decision. So all that being said, if you decide to start the 30-day challenge, please let me know in the comments. And I hope that this story has helped a little with understanding why I have gone down this road of choosing such an extreme way of eating and why it has changed my life for the better. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you have a great week, and I will see you in next week's video.